Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. This is my first video post TI-10. What a crazy TI that was. That was amazing. I cannot believe that Team Spirit won. I don't think anybody predicted that they would even get like top 4, top 3, whatever it is, let alone go on to win the whole thing and beat LGD, who was the team that everybody probably predicted that had the highest chance of winning the whole thing. I feel a little bit bad for LGD. I think they kind of choked in some ways at the end, not banning Magnus, all of that kind of crazy stuff. But, yeah, I didn't really even post many videos last week because I was just so busy watching TI. I just, watched it all week as much as I could. It was extremely exciting and an awesome TI. It was very, very fun to watch. Now, I was questioning what to do, after TI, what videos should I make? So I decided that why don't we do tier lists for every position for the meta for TI. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the carry tier list for the TI-10 meta first, and we're just going to jump right into it. The S tier. If you watched any TI-10, you're going to know the S-tier heroes, and the first one is Tiny. Tiny is obviously the number one S-tier carry hero. This hero was insane. I think I said before TI, look out for this hero. It was kind of on the upswing, and I had a feeling, and a lot of pros did, that this Tiny hero in TI-10 was going to be insane, and it actually really turned out to be a hero that was almost more broken than any other hero we've seen. Like, it was just deleting heroes in 1 or 2 hits. And it's largely because of the tree grab having no charge limit at 20 when you get this shard. It was just so crazy. But the other thing is that I think LGD pioneered this strat, which was picking Tiny and then also picking off-lane Lycan, who would go second item Ags and bite the Tiny, and then Tiny gets all these buffs, like hasted move speed, running around with this, causing chaos in the fights. You don't even kind of see the Tiny, super tanky, and then just deleting people and doing insane building damage. It's just crazy. This hero was insane. It was super hotly contested, banned almost every game first phase because people just did not want to let this through. And honestly, the only reason that this isn't S tier on its own is because at the end of TI, the last, the grand finals, the semifinals, all those things, the last little bit of TI, we did see Tiny get countered mainly by Magnus. So Magnus was able to use Horn Toss and Skewer to get Tiny out of position, get Tiny's teammates out of position and kill them. And that was kind of the only thing that could stop this hero. So that's honestly the only reason that I don't put it at an S tier above everything else. And the next one that we're going to have in S tier is Monkey King. And Monkey King is S tier because actually Monkey King was banned more than Tiny. It had more first phase bans, and it was almost more hotly contested than even Tiny was, and it was picked almost as much. It also had a decent win rate, just like Tiny. It actually had a better win rate than Tiny. And the main reason that this hero is so good is not just because of the main reasons that Monkey is good. It lanes pretty well. It can be very, very scary in the lane. It also scales with all of the things that, like Echo Saber and Deso and Maelstrom and Scotty and Basher and all that stuff that works well in his ult. Those things are all still good about the hero. But the other thing that's good about the hero now is that it has been played 4 positions. So you saw Crit playing at 4 position. You saw some other people, some other 4 positions playing Monkey. And what would happen is in the draft, because of the way pro meta works, you could pretty much first pick Tiny, and then first pick Monkey, and then if Monkey wasn't a very good carry pick, you could flex it to 4. And so that's why Monkey ended up being a better hero, an insane hero, so hotly contested, so highly picked and banned overall, because it was able to be flexed, and it was just a good carry in general. So Monkey is another S tier carry. It was really, really good, had a very high win rate when it was played, and also even banned more than Tiny. So that's why I put these 2 heroes above, beyond all the rest of the heroes. So that's the S tier. That's pretty much not controversial, I don't think. The next one we're going to look at is A tier. And I think from here on down, there's a little bit of, maybe controversy or a little bit, how do I exactly judge this? Well, obviously, I'm looking at picks and bans and win rates. But really, I'm looking at 2 main things, picks and bans, a little bit more than win rate, because even if the win rate's not the best, it just means that, maybe they weren't winning these games, but they were picked and banned a lot because of how they were contesting. And pro drafts are very, very different than pub games. And the other thing I was looking at too is how, who played these heroes and how contested were they later into the game, later into TI, into the grand finals and all of those things. So that's why I'm putting this tier list out. You could change things around based on stats or based on, personal opinion, but this is basically what I came up with from watching the games and looking at the drafts and looking at who picked them. So anyway, we'll jump into A tier here. I'm going to put basically these 3 heroes as A tier. That's Spectre, Luna, and actually Faceless Void. And the main reason for this is that, like, Spectre especially had an insane win rate. I think it was like 70% win rate if I check here. No, it was like 65% win rate. It was banned a good amount. Now, it wasn't the most highly contested hero, but at the end of TI, you did see this Spectre pick being extremely effective with the new build, with the Ags build and going Orchid or other things like that. It just was really, really effective. So it wasn't the best in every game, but the later you went into TI, the more you saw this hero. And that's the same thing with Luna. Going into TI, I don't think people valued Luna all that much, but then we saw Luna in the grand finals. We saw Luna being picked up as like a stable hero through the entire main event, that a lot of times people would just pick Luna and it would be as good as it was, a few patches ago, a few months ago. And it seemed like maybe people just underestimated Luna in general because of that. And it ended up being a better hero at the end of TI than it maybe started off, that people undervalued it in the beginning. So that's why I put Luna there. And the last one also is Faceless Void. And Faceless Void mainly because even though this hero actually didn't get picked all that much, it was banned. Like, I think it was only picked, let's see, I see here 15 times. It did have a 60% win rate when it was picked, but it also was banned a ton. It was banned like 65 times. So it was banned very, very often. It was one of the most highly banned heroes other than, the huge heroes, the heroes that were banned like a ton. It was very, very hotly contested. And I think that's largely because it maybe wasn't a tier 1 hero. It wasn't like Tiny or Monkey. It wasn't a first pick kind of thing, but it often ended up being that Faceless Void was a very, very good counter to whatever the enemy had in the second phase and those kinds of things. So it ended up being a hero that was banned a lot second phase. So you might not have seen it be picked a lot, but that's, I think, because it was good enough that it would fit a lot of games and they banned it a ton. Like, there was a lot of games where this hero could have been good and could have won, but it was just banned constantly. And so that's the main reason that I put Faceless Void here. And then the next 3 are arguably probably more of the solid A tier through the whole tournament, but they ended up kind of falling off later, and that's Medusa, Weaver, and Morphling. If you look at the overall pick and ban rates, these 3 heroes have they're pretty highly contested. They actually have high stats, high numbers. Picked a lot, especially Weaver, picked a bunch. But the difference is that these 3 heroes kind of fell off later. They weren't as popular later into the main stage, and especially Weaver. I think Weaver was picked a lot for a similar reason that Monkey was picked, but it just felt a little bit underwhelming once it actually was the carry that, it almost seemed better in some ways as a support sometimes, because as a carry, it just didn't seem to scale into the late game as much as you would want it to. And it seemed like a more popular pick in the group stage in the early part of the TI meta, and as it evolved, it kind of fell off. And that was the same thing with Medusa. Medusa was still good, still is good, but just wasn't as highly contested, wasn't as sought after, and just wasn't as good of a hero, I think, later into the TI meta. Even though it was, pretty popular, had a less than 50% win rate, but was banned a decent amount, still banned like 60 games or something like that. So that's pretty much the case with all of these. And even Morphling here. Morphling had an actually really good win rate, was picked a decent amount, but and also was banned a decent amount. If anything, Morphling might be better than these 2, but also, again, later into the meta of TI, it just kind of fell off. But it still was contested a lot, still was really good, so that's why I put them all here. Next, actually, B tier, I put Ursa, Sven, and Terrorblade all in B tier because actually I think Ursa and Sven were kind of the opposite of some of these heroes up here, where it ended up being that these 2 heroes were very, very highly contested later on into TI. I think Ursa, whether it was paired with Io or whether it was paired with Lycan for the bite, those kinds of things, it was a hero that had some success, but then ended up being picked and banned more often later in the game because it was one of the only heroes that could fight into some of the strategies like the Monkey King and the Tiny and some of these other heroes. Ursa and Sven were these 2 heroes that, like, there was a couple games where Sven actually was killing Tiny and almost hit a better timing than Tiny and was taking over the game. But the reason why I put them B tier is because if you look at their win rate, despite the fact that they were hotly contested, they had a pretty bad win rate. So Ursa, 42% win rate. Sven, 38% win rate. The win rate just wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough, I think, to be in that A tier, but it had the benefit or the advantage of later into TI. It was more hotly contested because of the way it countered some of these other very popular heroes. And then the same thing with TB. TB was a kind of decent hero. It was like maybe underwhelming at times. It wasn't really picked up a ton at times, but then it ended up being pretty crucial and pretty critical in certain games where it just ended up being the win condition, especially in that last, that last game of TI, that fifth game in the grand finals. It was obviously super important. It was one of the things that could beat Tiny. So it had it was picked a decent amount. It was actually picked more than Ursa and Sven. It had a 52% win rate, and it was banned like 43 times. So it was pretty hotly contested. It just wasn't picked as much as some of these other heroes up there, and it didn't have as good of a win rate as like Spectre or anything like that. But it was still pretty good, and still had a good showing at TI. So that's why I put all of these heroes here. Then next we'll move on to C. C, I have Troll, Slark, Lifestealer, and Razor, and this is largely because all of these heroes had something about them where they were hotly contested for one reason or another. So if we actually look at like Troll, Slark, and even Lifestealer and Razor, they weren't actually picked a ton. The pick rate overall was kind of low on them. Troll was actually picked as much as Faceless Void. Faceless Void was really weird because Faceless Void was like banned so many times it just wasn't able to be picked because of like what I talked about before. But then like, Slark and Lifestealer and even Razor, they were picked like, less than 15 times, like 12 for Razor, 11 for Lifestealer. Where's my Slark here? Oh, Slark was only picked 8 times. But the reason why I put them in this category is because Slark, despite being only picked 8 times, banned 36 times. And he had a 50% win rate. So, he went 50-50, a 50% win rate, 4-4, but he was banned 36 times. Same thing with Lifestealer. He had a 45% win rate. He only went 5-6. It wasn't that big of a deal, but he was banned 24 times. And then Razor, similar. He was only picked 12 times, went 7-5, but he was banned, 22 times. And same thing with Troll, banned 27 times. So that's why I put these all up here, because even though they might not have had the best win rate or weren't picked a lot, they were banned a lot in like the second or third phase because they were like hard counters to some of the lineups. And so they were like considered decent in TI to some extent that they didn't want them to be picked in like a last pick situation. And so that's why they're C tier. And that's honestly why these heroes are above the D tier, because all of these heroes in D tier, they were picked sometimes. They maybe had a decent win rate, but they just weren't contested. They weren't banned, and they weren't picked at all, really, either way. So, like, the only one that really did have not a better showing, but like more of a hotly contested showing was Gyro, but his win rate was abysmal. It was actually completely terrible. If I look here, he went 4-15, so he was picked 19 times with only 4 wins. He was banned 22 times, but that was just like a terrible showing. He was also put mid sometimes. I just think it was a terrible Gyro patch, a terrible Gyro TI. He was picked some, but it just did not show up. It just wasn't as good. Even despite IO being popular, just didn't come to fruition. Same thing with Jug. Jug was picked, had a decent win rate. Clinks, decent win rate, like I think it was 50-50 for some of these. They had some games where they were good, but none of these heroes were really hotly contested. You saw PA win a couple games. You saw AM win a game or so. Naga and PL, I think, are the weirdest ones here. You would think that they would be a little bit better with something like TB up here, but it just wasn't really a very good illusion meta for whatever reason. Naga seems like a decent carry, but really, honestly, only won one game, and that was in the grand finals. So if anything, that one game could maybe have me put it up here, but I think that was just like a weird draft. And then PL, you would expect it to be a little better, but it just wasn't picked and banned all that often. So I'm not going to put it much higher than in that tier, because I think if I go here, where is PL? Yeah, PL only had 4 picks, went 2-2. Now, he was banned 15 times, but he only had 4 picks. People were not picking this hero. Same thing with Clinks. Just all these heroes, decent win rates, picked sometimes, but just, I just think they are D tier. They're just not really super relevant. And then F tier, the last tier, basically the last 3 heroes here were not picked as carry or just not very good. And then these 2 heroes were just either not picked at all, which was Lone Druid, or picked once and was just terrible, which was Alchemist. And I don't even know if he was picked. He might have been even picked as offlane. I think he was picked as carry. I think LGD tried to pick this hero carry or mid or something like that in the group stage at the end when they were already top of the group, and it just didn't work out. So these heroes are all just terrible, either not picked at all or picked once and just lost or something like that. So these heroes are all terrible. These heroes at least had some games and were okay, but still probably bottom of the barrel. So that is my TI-10 meta analysis. That's the tier list for the carry position in TI-10. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think something should be higher or lower based on, your analysis of the stats. But basically, I'm just straight up looking at the picks and bans and the win rates and just trying to figure out basically what, based on those, what the tier list is and also how hotly contested they were later into the, the meta of the main stage into the grand finals and all of those kinds of things, because really some of these heroes might be picked or banned higher or more often early in the game or early in the group stage by teams that aren't that good, and so I'm not going to consider them as good because of that. So let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. As always, links are below for everything for Discord. If you want a replay review, let me know there or in the comments. Patreon for coaching as always, or if you want to support me, my Twitch is below. I'm going to be doing replay reviews there like every Friday, maybe start streaming more as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.